Hello, it's Duncan. I've been promising for years to improve the look of our TDD Gilded Rose stock list, but I'm really not very good at colouring in. Luckily, technology now has my back. Not having to learn CSS is probably worth a million tokens. Okay, it's finally time to make this look prettier. I don't think we've done any work at all in styling this application. It's very much plain HTML. These are forms, checkboxes, and the main body here is a table. Let's go and have a look at where we render it. This is stock list rendering, and it has this render function. And in order to support HTMX partial updates, we have this just table flag to tell us whether we want to render the whole page or just the table. It takes the result of loading our stock list. And if that's an error, then we just recover here by sending an internal server error with some apology text. But otherwise, we return a response with status OK, content type text HTML, and a body of render HTML, which is here. And if we're just rendering the table, then we just render the table with some special magic here that I don't remember. Otherwise, we start rendering HTML with Kotlin X HTML. And here you can see our head and body. And eventually we will end up with rendering the table there. So looking at the head, here it is. You can see we have no linked style sheets or anything. And if we wander down here, you'll see, well, fundamentally no classes, no styles. It is completely plain HTML, with the exception of some accessibility bits. Nothing to see here, except that it looks like we actually set the size in characters of some of our inputs. Oh, and here I see width 100% for some of our inputs. That will pad them out to the table cell size. Actually, this one looks like the submit button for saving changes. Overall, Firefox's default style sheet seems to do a pretty good job there, but there's no doubt that it looks utilitarian. For an admin page though, how much is pretty worthwhile to us? I think the answer is not a lot, and that's why we don't employ a designer. But we do pay the AI, so this feels like one of those places where we don't need deep quality or deep understanding, we just want it to look better. So then let's go back to IntelliJ. Shall we let Junie have a stab first? Let's go here and say the stock list page looks very plain. Make it look modern and responsive. Actually, responsive is a point. So just go back to the browser. We'll use the responsive design mode here and just see what it looks like on an iPhone. Well, that's not terribly readable. An iPad, I suppose that would be okay. Smaller phones, yuck. Okay, so responsive would also be nice. I'm going to say I know that CSS frameworks are a thing. Use one if you think best. Make sure all the tests pass before you finish. Alright then, I'm in Brave mode. Let's go and make a cup of tea. Just before I do, I notice that part of the plan here is choose a lightweight CSS framework that works with simple class additions and a CDN link. Prefer one that styles plain HTML with minimal class changes to preserve DOM structure, e.g. Water or Pico. Oh, it's gone back and decided to use Pico.css. Well, let's let it run. Oh, done. I don't know how long it's been waiting for me. It's changed only two things. 2 lines have changed in the stock list rendering. Shall we have a look at those? Okay then, well, this is something about responsive, I'm pretty sure. And here we have our Pico.css, whatever that is, being brought in. Splendid. That, I guess, is reflected in, yes, this is where we render. Okay, well, that was pretty minimal, it's got to be said. Were there any other files added? No. So whatever Pico.css is doing, looks like we haven't configured it in any way. I suppose everything hinges then on what that looks like. Let's rerun our main and see what we've got. Alright, well, big delete button. This is our table filling the screen. Well, I think it's worse on the big screen. Let's have a look at mobile. Well, that's not much better either. A refresh maybe? No. Okay, my iPad would require me to scroll left and right. my iPhone would be pretty much useless. Well, there's a phrase, never mind the quality, feel the width, but I think the width here is just our big problem. Let's return to the desktop. No, that really is worse, isn't it? The good news is that Junie isn't easily offended, so let's give it some feedback. That really doesn't work well on mobile and is ugly on desktop. Try again, please, maybe with a different framework. And let's see what we get. So it's proposed to replace Pico.css with Water.css, and it says add some custom styles in the head to remove the mobile usability. Well, again, if it can do that, that would be great. All right then, again, very few changes. Let's look in the diff view. Again, just the rendering and a little bit of inline style here. Overflow scrolling, white space, la 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 la. That's exactly the sort of stuff that I don't want to have to be bothered with. So let's rerun, reload, and oh, well, that's not hateful. It still requires some scrolling though. Ooh. I like the banding here, but I'm not sure I like the banding here, although that it is what it is. Probably better than last time. What about the phone? Oh, maybe on the phone the table would have to lay out a lot more vertically. iPad. No, again, we seem to be scrolling left and right in the table. Apart from that, though, I don't hate it. Making it work on the phone isn't a hard requirement, but scrolling left and right on desktop in order to maintain some viewport, that really doesn't do it for me. That's better, but the table is wider than the thing that it's in and clipped so that I need to scroll left and right to see it all. Okay, we have a plan based on no wrap and handling only on table, whatever that means. Use table layout fixed and width 100%, enable word wrapping in cells to avoid overflow. Oh, that sounds plausible. Well, go at it. The tests are being run. All tests have successfully passed, although those are just 4 tests out of them all. And these HTTP tests I'm not sure are good ones. All right, we're done. Once again, we'll rerun. Once again, we'll reload. And, well, I suppose that is now fitting in the screen. That's good. I hate this, obviously, but that's a small thing. Let's have a look at responsive. That's an iPad. That's a sensible iPhone. What happens if I edit? It is all appalling. But maybe the phone isn't important to me. iPad would be a place, and apart from those buttons and a sort of overlap here between the name and the sell by date for some reason, when we're in editing mode, if I cancel that, it's better. It seems to be using a stupid amount of space for a checkbox here on the left. I suppose we might be able to fix that. The word wrapping these buttons, I'm sure that's fixable. I suppose I'm most worried about that behavior. The pop-up, I suppose, works. I can click in there, but that overlap is horrible and I don't really know how to fix it. Oh, I can make the table bigger. Who knew? Oh, well, not the table, just whatever the table is sitting in. That was the thing I didn't know could be done. So the crucial question is, can we get there from here without me having to become an expert in CSS? And I must say I'm not entirely convinced, but we have gone forwards. So maybe let's just run Gradle clean tests. And let's check that in, see what the AI assistant thinks we did. Well, Water.css is true, and I'm going to say new branch of Water.css. Let's create that, commit to that, and now go back to main. And this time, I know it's old-fashioned, but I think I'm going to start with something that's designed for web apps, and that's Twitter Bootstrap. So let's start a new task and say use Twitter Bootstrap to improve the stock list rendering if it isn't too painful, it would be nice if it looked good on mobile, but desktop is our priority. And off we go. Aha, there we go. Well, you can see by the number of changes in the approved rendering files that this has made quite major changes to our HTML. It hasn't just changed some top level styles. We'll have a look in there. So yes, now we end up with classes for form control and form control things, and who knows. Lots of Twitter Bootstrap stuff. I'm going to choose not to understand that. Let's rerun the app and reload. Ooh. Well, that delete button's interesting, but apart from that, that's quite nice. It looks like Twitter Bootstrap. That works reasonably enough. Although it would be nice if the table didn't change size there, I suppose. In responsive, on a phone, a bit rubbish if it's actually what it looks like. iPad, that's the nicest of the lot really, isn't it? Edit there, still that nasty re-render. This can only really live if that delete button moves from there, I think. So we'll give it a chance. I think if the button moves, then maybe the table will sort itself out. So let's just say the delete button is taking the entire height of the table. I just want it above the table. Well, it says something here about repositioning the form above the table and removing the flex wrapper. Flexbox was the point at which I stopped trying to understand CSS. We still seem to have issues here with Junie not knowing how to run tests or not knowing whether they ran properly. Okay then, I think this may be your last chance, but let's go with it. Refresh. I say that's not bad, is it? Let's try resizing our window. That's good. Oh, some craziness there. And like Moon, by the way, it gives this little palette of things that you can do where you want to put windows. You can kind of like drag them like that. It's rather nice, but you don't care about that. Returning here, we'll look at tools, responsive, we'll say, oh, that's nice on an iPad. What happens if I click edit? Things change width, but that's not too bad. Down on an iPhone. Okay, still scrolling left and right on an iPhone, but I think that's okay. On desktop, we really have quite a nice thing. I wonder if we just made the edit button and the cancel button the same width, whether we wouldn't have that layout issue. Shall we risk it? Make the edit and cancel buttons the same width so that the table doesn't change size when we edit. What's the worst that can happen? One thing I'd really like of an AI, if it said, oh, just wait, I'll fix that, or you might as well go and have a cup of coffee, it's going to take a bit of time. As it is, I have to use my judgment. And my judgment here is that maybe it'll be quick. Oh, and for some reason, every now and again, I have to press a button, at least to scroll down. All right, then it's declared victory. Our usual little dance of rerunning and refreshing. And now if we edit, no, that hasn't worked, has it? I don't think it's made anything worse, but it hasn't made it better. To be fair, this is a hard job. When the table is first laid out, there isn't a cancel button in it, so I don't suppose there's any way of fixing the width of this edit column to be the width of a button that isn't there yet. And if we hard code it to some value that we think will be appropriate when the cancel is shown, then the danger is that we'll mess up with different font sizes. So if we zoom into this, who knows what the behavior will be. If you have a better idea, then please let me know. For now, at least though, I think this is better enough. It's made quite a mess of our HTML. We've gained divs in places like this, and we've gained classes all over the place to style our text. In the old days, I think I might have thought that Twitter Bootstrap was a sort of architectural decision, that it would become increasingly difficult to change out as the project went along, as we tweaked it. That's probably still true, but maybe a little less so now. We might think we could ask an LLM to convert from Twitter Bootstrap to Material or something like that. So if the tests all pass, okay, delete items HTTP tests, also add item HTTP tests. Let's just have a look at those. Oh, and edit items. We'll look at the add one, see what the issue is. When we add an item, we expected a value that has a status that's 200 and a body that's not null and matches something with a table in it. But now our body rendering doesn't match whatever that regular expression is. Let's find where that happens. It's here and has just a table element. Body says, I am a table. I'm guessing the styling we put on a table means that this now has attributes, and so we can't match that. I think maybe it wouldn't be so terrible to say there would be a space and then anything else. Let's see whether that does it. Okay, so that passes. To be honest with you, I'm wondering whether these HTTP tests are really worthwhile. Now that we're testing with Playwright, maybe all that we really care about is what appears on the page looks right and we interact with it properly. So overall then, I think that's a commit. We'll click all those. We can see here we've changed that regular expression to add the stock list rendering, to add all the Twitter Bootstrap malarkey, and the approved files for the rendering because we've added all the Bootstrap malarkey. We'll ask AI Assistant. It's on the nail, I think, so let's commit that. Just before we go, I thought I'd give Claude Code a crack at it. I told it the stock list page looks really old-fashioned, give it a smart modern look but with the same behaviour. It went away, and I suppose it took about 10 minutes. It decided to style things itself. Its criteria were a clean card-based layout with subtle shadows and rounded corners, modern colour scheme, improved typography, and finally a responsive design. It went away and did stuff. And you can see from this diff that it used an embedded style sheet directly in the HTML with styles for each ones and so on. Quite a lot of change there. Some tests failed and so on. And by the end it declares success. The output looks great with modern styling. All the functionality is preserved. And we have apparently a modern glass morphism design. So let's see what we get. It certainly has rounded corners. Let's see how it resizes. Well, not so well. In fact, that's rather strange. It doesn't seem to style these edits at all, leaving them a bit weird, but okay. We have some nice sort of hover effects where things, I don't know if you can see that, pop up underneath the mouse button. That's quite sweet. And in the sell by days here, it's even taken it upon itself to render negative sell by dates as red and items before their sell by date as green, which is quite nice, isn't it? There's one problem, which is that if we select an item and delete it, we get that, but it doesn't actually go away. And if I refresh this page, it is still there. So it's actually broken the functionality, but hey, good looks and good behavior don't always go together. I think on the whole, it'll be easier to maintain the Twitter Bootstrap version than this with its large embedded style sheet. But the beauty of the AI approach is that we've been able to try 4 different CSS frameworks out for size without actually having to learn any of them. And in my experience at least, not having to learn CSS is probably worth 1 million tokens. So then, everything's reverted. We'll reload this to get back to Twitter Bootstrap and get on with our lives. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have and you'd like to see more, then please subscribe to the channel. I like it when you like it enough to press the like button. And if you do, then I think you might like the book that I wrote with Nat Price called Java to Kotlin Refactoring Guidebook, details of which are in the show notes below. Thanks for watching.